So, Mr. Cook, it was odd to me that you did not remember anything about that termination provision before the break. And it was only by the prompting of your attorney's question that somehow you remembered it. What is it that you remembered, if anything?
I remember something happening in Japan where we needed to make a change in the termination clause.
That's it? That's all you remember?
That's the extent of my memory.
And at the beginning of your testimony, you indicated that you wanted to focus on users. I've seen evidence that a significant portion of revenue from in-app purchases come from gamers. Have you seen evidence to that effect?
I have, Your Honor.
And it's incredibly significant as compared to all other users. Revenue is coming from gamers more than anyone else. Am I right in my current understanding? And you see all these binders, I still have to review them.
The majority of the revenue on the App Store comes from games.
Okay. And in-app purchases in particular, right?
Correct.
So what is the problem? Well, I would say the other thing you said is you want to give users control. Is that right?
That's right, for the data. So
what is the problem with allowing users to have choice, especially in the gaming context, to find, to have a cheaper option for content?
I think they have a choice today. They have a choice between many different Android models, a smartphone or an iPhone, and that iPhone has a certain set of principles behind it, from safety to security to privacy.
But if they wanted to go and get a cheaper battle pack or cheaper V-Bucks, and they don't know that they've got that option, what is the problem with Apple giving them that option? At least that information that they can go and have a different option for making purchases.
If we allowed people to link out like that, we would in essence give up our total return on our IP.
Right, but you could also monetize it a different way, couldn't you? I mean, that is, the gaming industry seems to be generating a disproportionate amount of money relative to the IP that you're giving them and everybody else. In a sense, it's almost as if they're subsidizing everybody else.
The bulk of the apps on the App Store are free.
That's right.
And so you're right, there is some sort of subsidy there. However, the way that I look at that, Your Honor, is that by having such a large number of apps that are free on the store, it increases the traffic to the store dramatically. And so the benefit somebody gets that's charging is they get a much higher audience to sell to than they would otherwise if there weren't free apps there.
So your logic then is that they don't get the customer base. So it's more of a customer base, not an IP then.
It's both, because we need a return on our IP. I mean, we have 150,000 APIs to create and maintain, and numerous developer tools, and the customer service piece of dealing with all these transactions. And so there's a lot of...
Right, but let me ask you.
Sure.
So banking apps. Wells Fargo is based here. I have multiple banking apps. I haven't paid for them, but I suspect other than the $99, you don't charge Wells Fargo, right? Or Bank of America.
That's correct.
But you're charging the gamers to subsidize Wells Fargo.
Well, in the gamer as an example, they're transacting on our platform.
People are doing lots of things on your platform.
But this is a digital transaction with a observable change in currency.
It's just a choice of a model.
We've made a choice. There are clearly other ways to monetize, but we chose this one because we think this one overall is the best way.
Well, it's quite lucrative, but it seems to be lucrative and focused on purchases that are being made, frankly, on an impulse basis. And that's a totally different question about whether that's a good thing or not. Not really right for any trust law. But it does appear to be disproportionate. I understand this notion that somehow Apple's bringing the customer to the gamers, right, users. But after that first time, after that first interaction, the gamers are keeping the customer with the games. That is, the developers of games are keeping their customers. Apple's just profiting off that, it seems to me.
I do it differently than you do, Diana.
I'm
sorry. I do it differently than you do. I do that you're creating the entire amount of commerce on the store, and we're doing that by focusing on getting the largest audience there. We do that with a lot of free apps, so they bring a lot to the table. And despite we don't collect any commissions from them, they bring a lot to the table. And then we have the majority of other people, the vast majority of other people that pay 15%. And only the people that are really profiting in a major way are paying 30%.
Yeah, but the 15%, you would agree with the basic proposition that competition is good.
I think competition is great. We have fierce competition in our business.
You don't have competition in those in-app purchases, though.
Sure. I mean, somebody could go if they're a gamer, they can go buy on the Sony PlayStation or the Microsoft Xbox or the Nintendo Switch.
Well, only if they know, right?
But that's up to the developer to communicate.
And only if they decide to switch in terms of how they do things, right?
Usually people have both.
The issue with the $1 million small business program, at least from what I've seen thus far, that really wasn't the result of competition. That seemed to be a result of the pressure that you're feeling from investigations, from lawsuits, not competition.
It was the result of feeling like we should do something from a COVID point of view. And then electing to, instead of doing something very temporary, just do something permanent. And of course, we had those things, the lawsuits and all the rest of the stuff in the back of my head. But the thing that triggered it was we were very worried about small business.
Okay, but it wasn't competition.
It was competition after we did ours to 15. It was competition that made Google drop theirs to 15. You can tell
I understand perhaps that Google did, that Google changed its price, but your action wasn't the result of competition.
It was the result of feeling like we should do something for small business, which are vernacular small developers.
So when other stores reduced their price, you felt no pressure, right, to reduce your price.
I'm not familiar with Steam and their financial model. One of the things that's missed here, I think, is there's a huge competition for developers. So it's just not the competition with the user side, it's also with the developer side in addition to the users. You can imagine if we had a above market kind of commission, people just wouldn't develop for us.
Well, let's talk about developers. I've seen evidence in the record that did a survey of developers. I'm gonna share with you the results of this bar graph that was presented to me. I don't know how accurate it is because I looked for the source document and couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. But this survey indicated that 9% of developers were either very dissatisfied or somewhat dissatisfied with Apple's distribution services. 36% somewhat satisfied or very satisfied. And 19% didn't go either way. They're in the middle. So with 39% of all your developers dissatisfied, how is that acceptable, and how is it, assuming those numbers are true, how is it that you're, again, feeling any motivation or incentive to address their needs?
I'm not familiar with the document that you're referencing, and so it's hard to comment on certain specifics. But keep in mind that on a weekly basis, we're rejecting 40%. And so there's definitely some friction in the system, but this friction is what produces a curated experience for users that they love, and it can go somewhere and be assured that it's safe and trusted. So sometimes the developer and the user are not necessarily in the intersect. And we always lean on the user.
It doesn't seem to me that you feel, again, real pressure or competition to actually change the manner in which you act to address the concerns of the developers. Again, if these numbers are right.
Yeah, I would look at that very differently. We turn the place upside down for developers. You could probably look at a complaint that I might get and look at the amount of time it takes for a change to be made in the company. It's amazing, actually.
Do you, we've seen a number of profit and loss statements. Do you have, and again, you see the 100 binders behind me. I don't recall seeing any other surveys or any other business records showing that you routinely conduct surveys regarding developer satisfaction and that you, in fact, move or make changes. I take with a grain of salt each side's anecdotal evidence. What I'm looking for are aggregates. Do you do that?
I don't know if we do that. That would be something that Phil would know.
Well, you certainly, as a CEO, then don't receive regular reports on that.
That's correct.